servants and Africans were whipped and beaten and treated poorly, because you can look at the records and see this. So one of the things I found very interesting is that Angela disappears from our records after 1625. But in 1639, we see the first official case actually talking about lifelong servitude. See, at first glance, the English have no law saying whether something's okay or not okay. That doesn't mean it's not happening. But in 1639, there's a man named John Punch. He's an African man who lives in what's now Yorktown, Virginia, and he runs away from his master, and 2 men ran away with him. 3 men run away together, described as John Punch, an African, and a Scotsman and a Dutchman. So you see 3 men at first glance who have brotherhood. They all escaped the same cruel master, and they ran off to Maryland, and all 3 men were captured. And all 3 men, the 2 Europeans and the 1 African man, were whipped 30 lashes apiece. But then it came time to further sentencing, and this is where you see the difference. The 2 Europeans were given 4-year sentences. That's the most you can give a European. That's a double contract. And then John Punch was sentenced to lifelong servitude for doing the exact same thing. So at first glance you see what? You see the brotherhood, and the second glance you see the separation. I want you to keep in mind that the English laws in our country that inherited English laws bases things on precedent, right? So the precedent is now being set that if you're African, you would get worse punishment than the other people. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is another precedent set in 1655. It's called the John Castlereagh case. And this was tried here because this is where the Supreme Court would have been, the Virginia Council. This man named John Castlereagh actually does have an indentured contract. That was happening a bit. There were some Africans a few decades later who did manage to get contracts. The problem is, this man, John Castlereagh, was expecting to be freed after 4 years. And after 4 years, his master says, you don't get to be freed because you're an African. The irony is, the master is Anthony Johnson, who himself is a black. And this case gets adjudicated all the way up to Jamestown, and the courts rule that because John Castlereagh is an African man, he can be sentenced to lifelong servitude, not for running away, not for escaping, just by being African. What that tells every African in Virginia is, what is your contract worth? Nothing. And every time we see this, we see these laws being passed, we see people rising up. Now, this is important for the third case. The third case happens in 1656. You may have heard of a woman named Elizabeth Key. But remember, everything in England is based on precedent, based on decisions made before. Now, if you're Elizabeth Key, you are a woman whose father is European, English, and your mother's African. And her father